Why does dirt always return to the same spot in your home? You scrub it until your hands ache. You wipe it carefully, methodically, convinced that this time will be different. You bend down, you reach into corners, you check every edge. You step back and look at it clean, clear, seemingly perfect, and you tell yourself it's finally gone. And then, days later, sometimes hours later, it's back. The same place. The same dark outline that lingers stubbornly. The same faint shadow that refuses to disappear completely. The same quiet irritation that sits there, unspoken, making you sigh instead of shout. This isn't about effort. It isn't about how hard you clean, or how often you try. And it isn't because you missed a spot. This isn't stubborn dirt. This is repetition. This is behavior repeating itself in silence. It's the invisible rhythm of life leaving traces where it always will. It's a pattern, a quiet one, a patient one, a persistent one. And patterns, they don't form by chance. They don't return without reason. They don't exist by accident. They are careful, deliberate, and always a reflection of the way life moves through the spaces we inhabit. Most people believe mess is random. They assume dust simply drifts and lands wherever it pleases. That grime appears by chance, without intention, without reason, without pattern. They tell themselves it is meaningless. They believe a dirty spot is just bad luck, an accident, a quirk of circumstance, something that happens for no real reason at all, a fleeting imperfection that will disappear on its own. But dirt is not chaotic. It is disciplined. It moves with patience, precision, and purpose. It does not wander aimlessly. It follows repetition. It memorizes your daily routines. It watches and learns the paths you take. It studies movement the way a shadow studies light. Where you walk, where you pause, where your hands brush past a surface without noticing, the corners you step over, the edges you ignore, the spaces you assume are irrelevant, and most importantly, it settles only where attention fades, where awareness drops, where later quietly replaces now, where habits of neglect silently create a home for it. Today, you're going to understand why one specific spot in your home refuses to stay clean. Not the entire room, not every surface, just that one place that keeps returning to disorder again and again. And when you see it clearly, you'll realize this has very little to do with cleaning. It has almost nothing to do with effort. It has everything to do with what you've learned to overlook. The habits you repeat without thought, the corners you ignore, the patterns you accept as normal. Once you notice this, once the pattern becomes clear, you won't be able to unsee it. It will stand out in every home you enter, and your understanding of mess and of the life that creates it will change forever. Chapter 1. Dirt follows your daily paths. Dirt does not wander aimlessly. It doesn't drift without direction or settle at random, like a leaf blown by the wind. It moves with intention, patiently, quietly, following patterns that already exist. It knows the paths you take. It memorizes the routes your body repeats every single day, even when you're not paying attention. The shortcuts you take when you're tired. The turns you make when you're in a hurry. The way you pause, shift, or brush past an object without realizing. Every step you take through your home leaves a trace. Not always visible at first. Not always immediate, but always present. Every little imprint, every tiny mark, every unnoticed touch. It is a record of where life moves. Every bag dropped by the door after a long day. Every shoe kicked aside instead of carefully put away. Every hand brushed against a wall as you pass, steadying yourself without even noticing. That spot near the door isn't dirty because it's unlucky. It isn't cursed. It isn't neglected by chance. It's dirty because it's busy, because life passes through it again and again, every day, without pause. Because the flow of activity leaves its mark, and the spot is part of the rhythm of living. The area beside the couch, that's not just a floor. It's a pause point, a place where you sit, where you rest, where crumbs fall quietly and stay unnoticed, where small, repeated action snacks, dropped items, shifting cushions leave traces that accumulate. Dirt returns because your routines return, because the path never changes, Because movement repeats itself in the same spaces, day after day. You clean the evidence. You remove what you can see. You polish, sweep, wipe. But the behavior continues. And so, inevitably, so does the dirt. It's not stubbornness. It's not misfortune. It's life leaving its quiet, constant signature in every step you take. Chapter 2. The place you rush past becomes the problem. There's always a spot you clean quickly. Not slowly. Not carefully. Not with focus or intention. Just enough to convince yourself it's been handled. You swipe once. Maybe twice. And then you move on, turning your attention elsewhere, leaving that corner untouched in spirit, if not in sight. Not because you're careless. Not because you don't care, but because you're rushing. Because your mind is already elsewhere. Because other things seem more urgent. It's the edge behind the furniture you never move. The narrow space beside the table where crumbs quietly gather. The corner just outside your main line of sight, where dust slips past unnoticed. The place you assume doesn't matter. The place you've quietly decided isn't worth slowing down for. That assumption is powerful, stronger than effort, stronger than intention, more influential than any quick cleaning ritual, because it teaches dirt where it is allowed to stay, where it can settle without resistance, where it will never be challenged. Neglect doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't announce itself in bold letters. It whispers, softly, patiently, consistently, and dirt listens. It knows the weak spots. It claims the corners you overlook. It occupies the spaces your attention refuses to reach. And in those quiet, unnoticed places, it becomes permanent. Chapter 3. Invisible causes create visible mess. Sometimes, the issue isn't dirt at all. It isn't what you see on the surface. It isn't the stain you keep wiping away, hoping it will disappear. It's what's underneath. What's happening quietly, out of sight. What you don't notice, until it's already taken hold. A slow leak you've learned to ignore. Not because you don't care. Not because it doesn't matter. But because it seems small, harmless, easy to deal with later. Humidity that lingers just long enough to be forgotten. Not enough to alarm you. Not enough to feel urgent. Just enough to stay, quietly, creating the perfect environment for dirt to thrive. A habit of saying, I'll wipe it later. A promise you've repeated so often it has become permanent. A delay that seems inconsequential in the moment. But in time it leaves a mark. Moisture changes everything. It softens surfaces, weakening resistance. It turns harmless dust into stubborn grime. It transforms a clean area into a magnet for mess, a place where dirt knows it can settle. It gives dirt something to cling to, something solid, something constant, something that refuses to be erased with a quick swipe or hurried scrub. And suddenly, one small spot feels permanently dirty, like no amount of effort can fix it. Not because it's broken, not because it's cursed, but because it's unattended, because the root cause remains invisible. And until that root is addressed, the cycle continues. Chapter 4. Your home reflects your awareness. Here's the truth most people avoid. Not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to look at things you'd rather ignore. It forces you to notice what you've learned to step over. Your home is not messy by chance. It isn't disorder by accident. It isn't randomness at work. Every mark, every smudge, every corner left untouched. It mirrors your awareness, with quiet precision, with brutal honesty. What you notice immediately, what your eyes catch the moment you enter a room. The surfaces you instinctively touch. The areas that feel important enough to attend to. What you delay, what you tell yourself you'll handle later. The corners you see but choose to ignore for now. And what you step over without stopping, day after day. So often that it becomes invisible. So often that you forget it's there, until it reminds you. The same way dirt returns to the same spot. The same way grime reappears where attention fades. Unresolved problems return to the same areas of life. Not loudly, not suddenly, but consistently. Relationships you avoid addressing. Health signals you dismiss as minor. Finances you promise to organize soon. Habits you've learned to live around, repeating patterns without even realizing it. Not because you can't fix them, not because you lack strength or ability, but because you've adapted around them. You've learned to step past them, to clean the surface, to look busy, while leaving the root cause untouched. And just like that neglected corner, the problems remain, waiting quietly, returning again and again, until awareness finally meets action. Chapter 5: Why Cleaning Alone Never Works. You can scrub a surface endlessly, polish it until it gleams, wipe it until your hands ache, and still, you can lose the battle. Because cleaning alone is a temporary illusion. It treats only the symptom, not the source. It covers the evidence, but it doesn't stop the cycle. It gives a fleeting sense of accomplishment, and then life moves again, leaving the same traces in the same spots. The real fix isn't force. It isn't elbow grease. It isn't hours of repetitive motion, no matter how perfect your technique. It's something far quieter, far more subtle. It's attention, focused, deliberate, patient, awareness applied consistently over time. Change the routine that feeds the mess. Notice the paths you take. Notice the habits that repeatedly deposit dust, crumbs, and debris in the same spaces. Notice the corners you skip, the edges you ignore, the places that silently invite clutter. Move the object that traps dirt. Shift the furniture, the rug, the item you've ignored for months. Because even the smallest obstruction can become a magnet for grime. Even an unnoticed item can collect dust like a quiet reservoir. Fix the leak you keep postponing. Repair the drips, the moisture, the subtle humidity that silently calls dirt home. It may seem small, it may seem insignificant, but it is the hidden cause behind the recurring mess. Slow down where you usually rush. Pause before you step past that unnoticed corner. Touch it. See it. Acknowledge it. Treat it with the attention it has been silently asking for. The moment the cause is addressed, everything changes. The dirt stops returning. Not gradually, not after repeated attempts. Immediately. Because attention defeats neglect, and awareness defeats repetition. Once you break the cycle, the mess never has a reason to come back. Your home begins to respond. Life begins to respond. And the spaces you ignored for years finally feel clean. In every sense of the word. Remember this. Dirt is not your enemy. It is not a force working against you. It is not a punishment. It is not a sign that you've failed or done something wrong. Neglect is. Neglect is what allows mess to grow quietly over time. Neglect is what lets dust settle, grime accumulate, and small stains become permanent. Neglect is the silent partner in every stubborn mark, every corner that refuses to stay clean, every recurring spot you've come to accept as inevitable. Your home isn't fighting you. It isn't conspiring to make your life harder. It isn't rebelling or resisting your efforts. It isn't judgmental or spiteful. It is communicating. Every mark, every smudge, every corner that refuses to stay clean is sending a message. It is telling a story about your attention, your habits, and what you've learned to overlook. And the spot that keeps getting dirty. It is not random. It is not insignificant. It is not there by accident. It is the place asking for awareness, the loudest. It is quietly, patiently calling for your attention, your care, your intention, your deliberate action. Because once you listen, and once you act, everything changes. The cycle breaks. The dirt stops returning. And for the first time, that small corner, that neglected space, responds to the attention it has been asking for all along. If this made you pause and look around differently, then something has already shifted. Subscribe to the Cipher Phantom, because the smallest things you ignore often decide the biggest outcomes of your life. Quietly, consistently,